All right, I got my train horn set in from Horn Blasters, and got parts of it here, parts of it on the bench. I'm going to put this in a Tesla Model S. There's a big pan that goes in here that I've got on the bench. It fills up all of this room, so there's no way for me to mount the horns down here anywhere, for example, to face out, because this frunk fits down in here, and you have to have it to be able to mount the HEPA air filter to the frunk. So all that has to stay in place. Just no room to mount it anyplace else other than inside the frunk. Here's the unit. This is a 4-horn set. It sounds pretty rich. I can't wait to try it out. And this is the frunk that I'm going to put it in. So the idea will be to take the compressor itself, we'll stick it down, mount it in here, and then the horns will go in some sort of fashion where I probably mount them, if I don't quit dropping them, probably mount them something like this, and I'll form a bracket to go over from the air inlet to the side, and then I'm going to cut out the front of the frunk so that I have space to let the horns protrude a little bit forward and not be enclosed in an airtight box. So what I'm doing now is simply taking the vibrating tool and cutting out around the perimeter. Might be easier to see this way. Cutting out around the perimeter so that once I get through, I'll be able to have an opening that the horns can go through. So let me finish that up. So it's just essentially using this vibrating oscillating tool to cover your ears to cut through all that plastic. Now I should be able to take that panel out. All right, it's easier than I thought. So now we still have some rigidity in this. It's still going to bolt up onto the frame. We'll maintain the rigidity. But now we've got this huge air pocket that we can allow the horn sound to go out. And this is only going to have the horn and the compressor in it, so I'm not worried about anything being in there that's going to get blown around. Ultimately, the horns are going to get mounted something like this. So you can see it protrudes a little bit beyond where I cut, which is fine. This is all the grill, so it gives it access to the outside without it being enclosed inside the frunk with the lid shut. You know, you wouldn't be able to hear anything. Well, not as loud anyway. Obviously be able to hear it. Got about 1.5 inches of clearance. So that's going to work like a champ. Got to get everything fabbed up for my brackets, the manifold essentially for the horns and the wiring. The battery for the Tesla is right here. That's easy to get to. Just have to take off this piece of plastic. So I'll put a tap onto that. And then the horn, the factory horn, is accessible right here. Let's get this out of the way. It's going to be accessible right here, so I'll be able to pull off of that for the horn to power the solenoid, so that I use the factory horn, or disable the factory horn, use the factory horn switch on the steering wheel to blow the horn, to blow the train horn. So it should be nice and factory looking almost when I finish. So I've decided the easiest way to do this is to use these pieces of angle bracket, and I'll just cut these and attach them through that wall. That'll give me the fixed angle so that the horns can be facing out. Weird angles, but you know, it works. That'll be attached there. I'll secure those. So 3 of the horns in, no problem. You can see these protrude out some, but I've got plenty of clearance, about 3 inches. So they should have about a 1/2 inch to clear. The compressor's in and mounted. Did through holes on that with the rubber isolation washers. This piece will be attached right here. So making progress. So this is essentially the look that we're going for. These will be painted black, just some aluminum strut I had laying around. I tied those into the horns, so once all this gets tightened up, this will stabilize these horns. They're in, of course, with a bracket, each one of them. Got an angle bracket going in. And then they'll come up to here to the aluminum strut, which will keep them from moving up and down and left and right. So really solidify them once all that gets tightened down. And then you can see out the front, we have it sticking out about 2.5 to 3 inches. We've got plenty of space for that. That way all the horns will be facing forward and blast through the radiator. and that should make for an awesome train horn sound. Okay, so we remove the compressor and the horn so we can go and get some electrical stuff in here. Mounted the solenoid down to the bottom, and I'm going to bring some wire up here to put in a connector. This will go to the horn, so the horn will activate this. Mounted the relay, got to get that wired up for the battery, which actually sits in this area on a Tesla. Get all that wired up, brackets are in place, holes are drilled, and we are almost there. Everything is mounted, and now we're starting to get into the plumbing, right? The fun part, the air hose. So I've got it going from the tank here, the outlet, down into where I put the solenoid. Just got to get all this plumbed up, and then each of these, you remember, have to be equal length so that the horns, the sound pressure is the same and it arrives at the same time, I guess, so they stay tuned. So I read. Once we get that done, would be just about there, probably 90%. Okay, everything's plumbed in. I got just enough line. I was able to tie some of these together, and that's an insulating tape just to make sure it doesn't rub against the pump. Got these put on, the little adapters that go from the brass fittings to the air line. Put some pipe tape around those just to make sure they wouldn't leak. So all that's plumbed in, and in case y'all didn't notice what this is a drain, so I can drain this thing without having to reach underneath it. I'll be able to reach down here, come in, and just drain this line as I need to once a week to keep the water out of the bottom of the tank. I think we're actually really close to bench testing it. Okay, as you can tell, the pump is running, it's pumping up. I got some wiring to neaten up here, which won't be a problem. I'll get all that squared away later. I've got both relays installed. It is pumping up. Simply cut a slit through the weather stripping channel so I can get the lid shut on it. And it is completely installed. And we will test it. Let you guys hear what it sounds like. All right, guys, you've been warned. Here we go, final test. We're gonna see what the horn sounds like. Good golly, that's loud.